Groveland Township regular board meeting for August 12th. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Please be seated. Carrie, would you please take roll call?
Dr. Palmer,
I'm here.
Patty Back,
Present.
Shelley Kidd,
Here.
Jim Christopher,
Please excuse.
Dale Casey.
Here. Okay. First item on the agenda is approval of the minutes from the previous meeting, which was July the 8th, and for the fire board meeting also on that same day. Are there any questions or comments from the board?
I'll move to support the minutes. Motion to accept them as presented.
Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Okay, any other questions or comments from the board? From the audience? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, there then. And then we have a consent agenda for tonight's meeting. I don't believe there's any additions to it that I'm aware of, so unless anybody has any comments, would we have a motion to approve our agenda for tonight? Kind of did that backwards, but it's okay.
I'll motion to approve the agenda as submitted.
Second?
Second that.
Okay, Shelley? Okay, any other questions or comments from the board? From the audience? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Okay. Next comes the financials. First is budget amendments. Candy, did you?
No, we're still good. We have no budget amendments this time. As
It's
far
probably a
as,
record, isn't it?
well, April, what are we, April,
4 months
May,
in,
June?
yeah.
4 months in, we should still be good. It's a good thing. I'll present the accounts payable. Township was $10,582.19 on the township. The building was $1,570, and to pay the bills out of our 701, which is where the money comes in for anybody who's doing a project and then we pay it out, was $1,274.72. That brings the total to $13,426.91. The fire budget or accounts payable the total is $19,015.90. So I motion we approve the accounts payable as presented.
Okay, is there a second to that?
I have a second.
Okay, any other questions or comments from the board? And from the audience? Okay, if not, Carrie, would you take a roll call?
Patty Back,
Yes.
Shelley Kidd,
Yes.
Dale Casey,
Yes.
Dr. Palmer.
Yes. Okay. Financial reports.
Financial reports, everything's in good shape. Again, there are no budget amendments, so I motion to accept the financial reports as presented.
Is there a second?
Have a second.
Okay, any other questions or comments from the board? Any from the audience? We're going for a record tonight. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, they're done. And then the investment report.
All the accounts are balanced and interest rates are creeping down a little bit, but we are locked in on some good rates. So, doing good.
Okay. And just want to make a motion. Why don't we make a motion to accept the financial report just so it's official?
Sure.
I'll make that motion. Is there a second to it?
I'll support.
Okay. Any other questions or comments from the board? Any from the audience? Okay. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Okay. Public hearings, we have no items on the agenda tonight. For presentations, we have no items. And unfinished business, we have no items. So we move right to new business. And the first item to discuss is the land division combination text amendment. And I don't know if you weren't at our last planning commission meeting, one of the things that we uncovered was the language for land division combinations and the way parcels were measured for their 4-to-1 depth to width ratio was actually a bit more restrictive in the township than what the state land law allows. And so just to bring it in conformity so it was less confusing for the engineering firms, and that our planner, Ben Tellerico, did a slight modification to the way they measured the 4-to-1 ratio and made it in compliance with the same way that the state does it. That's really what our minutes that we have from the July 23rd Planning Commission meeting are covering. So this is an open hearing if anybody has any questions on it. But it's just kind of a housekeeping error, really, to keep a technical glitch fixed in it. If there are no questions, we'll just move then to somebody want to accept the modification to the text amendment as submitted.
I have a motion to accept the modification as submitted.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
By Dale. Okay, any other questions or comments from the board? Any from the audience? Okay, we're rocking and rolling here. Okay, and all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, that's done. Take care of that, cleans up something. This next item is something that came to me late last week. For those of you who don't know it, the Oakland County Road Commission is the place where the money that comes back from the federal government that we all kind of pay in gas taxes and that. You've probably heard over the years on the news that Michigan was one of those states that used to pay like $1 and get 96 cents or something back, and then our legislators went and kind of fought for some changes, and I think we get about 98 or 9 cents of the dollar back. That money is what comes back through the Surface Funding Committee that I sit on. And that board is really what, in conjunction with the Road Commission and about 30 representatives from different townships, cities, and villages, decides how the money for road projects gets spent. One of the things that Oakland County started doing a couple of years ago was they realized that some of the counties farther outstate up north could never use all of the federal money on projects that they had coming in. So they did some bargain hunting. And they actually found that in some of the cases, these other counties are willing to sell their federal aid dollars to Oakland County's Road Commission for about 80 cents on the dollar. So when they get a chance to buy them like that, they try and do it. And just before I left for a couple of days of vacation last week, Tom Nosha, the guy that does the planning for the road projects that we do out here over the years, and everybody else's, said we've got some extra dollars that we acquired from another county. And we're just wondering if your Barron Road project, if you'd like to consider paving not just half of Barron Road to Perryville, but go all the way to Barron and do the whole road. And I said, I think we'd be interested. And so I left it with him this way: you have to get me the answer by 4 o'clock on Monday, April the 12th, in order for me to get the board to hear it. And so about 1:30 it came in on the email. But basically what he's done is prepared a preliminary estimate, and I think you all have a copy of the email that I got from him this afternoon. And it basically says the estimate for doing the whole project would be $5.3 million. Again, the federal aid money would pay 80% of that. The remaining 20% is, as you can see in this memo, going to be split between the township and the road commission. So out of $5.3 million, our estimated cost for the project's $530, and we can get the whole thing done. And if you know from past experience, when I go to the federal aid committee to try and get another piece of road paved, like when we did Groveland and Oak Hill and all those projects like that, I have to start 5 to 7 years before the paving truck ever shows up. It just takes that long to get in the hopper because they actually normally only fund 1 mile of gravel road paving in all of Oakland County every year. And there's about 700 and some miles. So as I jokingly say, we all got to hang around so that we're here for that last mile to be paved, okay? But it's a very long, laborious process. So this opportunity to get this kind of squeezed in here with the acquisition they made, I think is a good deal for the township.
That's a good decision.
Pardon?
That's a good decision. At least you can, you got 2 birds in one hand, right?
Well, yeah, it would normally take about, if we didn't do this and we wanted to do the other half of the road, I'd have to start again next year.
Right.
And it'd be another 5 to 7 years before we got there. So we do have in our, and if you hear when the auditor went through the books the other day at the last meeting, we're in good shape. We have around 2.5 to 3 million roughly in the infrastructure fund altogether. Maybe
Yeah, almost 3.
3, yeah. And that money has been earmarked for what we want to do to get the development on the township's property, because one way or the other, in order to get that property developed, we would have to eventually either put an on-site treatment plant or a connection for a sewer line out of Genesee County. And I'll talk about that in a minute. But it's going to take a couple of years to get to that stage. And if we continue what we've been doing, we should be able to put a couple $100,000 a year away from these non-permanent sources that we have right now. So my recommendation is I think we take this opportunity and pull that second half of the funding out of the infrastructure fund, get it lined up. They want to pave it in 2021, and they'll do the whole road then, and it'll be insurmountably safer than it is now. Because if you know, when you go down Barron Road, there's a lot of hills and dips on it, and a couple of them are really high. And they generally, in order to meet the federal aid requirements, they try and bring the high spots down as low as they can and bring some of the other ones up so that you have a better line of vision down the road that you can see farther ahead. And the one that I think catches me the worst, I know, Kevin, is that one before Perryville that's right at the very top, and the guy that lives there, actually, I used to think that was the driveway, but it's really a clearing for him to put his garbage cans, so when the trash truck comes by, he can stop there without getting rear-ended, because if he went over the hill to his driveway to pick it up like he does at Meyer, your house, he would get blasted by somebody coming over the hill at 55 miles an hour. So my guess is they, to the extent that they can make it work, they'll try and lower some of those and maybe fill some of it by the swamp and get it a little bit closer, be much safer road. I think we should do this. I think we have a couple of years that we can replenish the funds in the infrastructure fund going forward to do it. So I told Tom I'd let him know tomorrow because the meeting was tonight, but I would recommend that we go ahead with this for the entire road, and with that I'll open it to discussion first from the board if anybody has any questions.
So it would be 530,000 of ours.
Yeah, they won't bill us that all at once.
I know.
We'll probably get half of it or something.
Yeah. Like they did for the trick road.
Yeah. Is there any questions from the audience?
Not a question, but boy, that levels it off, so some of those soft sides are better.
Yeah. Well, you know, when they do the thing that people need to know, so if you look at the roads we had done with federal aid, they're done to a much higher standard than just a standard county road project, because in order to get the federal aid money, you have to do things like cut all the trees at the side far enough back that they're not a safety hazard for accidents. That one I smashed my old bravado on, that tree got cut down the next year. Because I slid off in the ice and it was just close enough to the road to hit, right? You know, and they just do a much higher level of paving on the projects, and it's a better deal all the way around. So if there are no other questions, yeah.
The 530,000, would that be, the installment payments, would that be split out, or would it have to be paid in one lump?
No, they do it in a couple of different, and they're pretty flexible if for any reason we were tight on cash, but we actually have the money. But typically, they bill us half the engineering in 1 year, and the balance of the engineering when it gets done the next year, and then they build the construction part of the road literally months after it gets done. I think we got billed for Trip Road like, I don't know, 6 or 7 months after the work was done.
Do you have a choice as to how you'd like to do, if one lump sum, or if you want to spread it out in 3?
There's no advantage to paying it on one lump sum because they don't give us any carrying interest on it or any discount for it. So they typically bill engineering half and half over 2 years, and then the road construction after it's done. But they're pretty flexible. On the last one we did, I asked them if they could build, because we were paying for Trip Road in the same year. I didn't want to run it all down. I asked if they would build half the engineering for that first part and the other half next year, and they said, yes, they're very accommodating. But the normal is half the engineering when you sign the contract on it, the other half the year after when they finish the engineering, and then the construction after the work is done. Any other questions? Okay, if not, this is for money and a lot of it, so roll call vote, please.
You motion?
We need a motion.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought I did make, I'm sorry. I'll make the motion that we approve doing all of Barron Road for the approximate cost of $530,000 for 2021 paving. I'll
And to
second that.
be taken from the infrastructure.
Yeah, and it'll be taken from the infrastructure fund.
Sorry.
I'm sorry. And you deserve to be able to do that. You were on the project from the beginning. Okay, Carrie, would you take a roll call on it?
Dale supported.
Yes.
Shelley Kidd,
Yes.
Dale Cason,
Yes.
Bob DiPalma,
Yes.
Patty Back.
Yes.
Okay, I will let Tom know tomorrow. Okay, thank you. Next item is the Heritage Conference. I put this on here. This is the same type of conference that was used a couple of years ago when we told our residents, you know, that we did it at Mount Holly for this part of Dixie Highway. The year before, it was done in Pontiac and Birmingham for the south part of Dixie Highway. This next one is in Rochester Hills at the Van Heusen House, and I think I would like to go to this. I've had some discussion with the people in the Economic Development Group. I think it might be beneficial. I don't know if anybody else on the board wants to go with us, but I think it's $40, and the deadline registration is September the 16th, so I would like to go. I don't know if you...
I would like to go.
Okay.
And that's gonna bring me into,
To
maybe
the other
now
project?
I should mention the committee.
Let me just finish this, and
Sure.
then I agree.
I would like to go.
Okay. So for at least three, Carrie, before we send this in, can you touch bases with Jim, because he'll be back tomorrow? And
Okay.
if I forget, remind me when he gets here, we'll make sure we see if he wants to go. So based on that, can we have a motion to approve the, you didn't want to go, right? Okay. Up to 4 board members to go to the conference?
I support.
Okay,
That's your
so that's my
motion.
motion. Okay. Is there any other questions or comments from the board and from the audience? Okay, Carrie, please take the roll call.
Dale Cason,
Yes.
Bob DiPalma,
Yes.
Patty Back,
Yes.
Shelley Kidd.
Yes.
And
Now,
that-
now you can,
yes.
that would be the perfect segue for.
That's what I was
you
just
want to
looking
do.
at this. I was gonna bring this up when it came into the clerk's reporting, but this kind of works into it. We would like to, or I've come across some information, would like to start a heritage committee. Carol Agbo is more than interested in helping us get this started. And I'm not quite sure, but there would be, you know, history, maybe doing a couple of projects every year. We're in the process, working with her right now to do a cemetery tour through, in conjunction with Groveland Township and Groveland. And you'll get more information on that as we move forward, getting things all set in place. Springfield has done some cemetery tours. This is all in accordance also with the cemeteries with the bicentennial coming up for the county. And I think to start a heritage committee, I know we had Carol Agbo here that talked on the Dixie Byway.
She's
This
just the
room-
greatest historian I found in the area.
She's amazing. This room was packed. I think there would be interest in this. And it would be basically just, maybe they put together a project or 2 projects a year. Might be an ice cream social just out under the pavilion in the back, depending on what they come up with. Maybe a tour of Centennial Farms. We have several of them in the area. These are just brainstorming things since I sat with her, I've thought about. So, this isn't something we need to vote on, I don't think, right now. Or do we need to?
No, I don't think
No,
so.
I don't think so either. It's
It's an
just
FYI
gonna be
right
a
now.
committee, it's just an FYI. We are going to put something on the sign stating if you're interested. We'll put it on the website, we will also put it on the Facebook page and hang notices on the door. Maybe a blurb in the Citizen.
Maybe Dave, you wouldn't mind doing a little bit in the paper for it? So
Yes.
if they had questions, they could ask. Patty
Yes,
about that,
anybody
give her our
interested,
contact
call
list.
the clerk. Here, perfect.
Okay,
So,
Thank you. Okay,
yeah, I'm kind of excited about it. I think we'll,
that moves us to item D, which
didn't
is public
sound
comment.
big.
Are there any questions or comments from anybody on anything? I said we're looking at a 20-minute meeting.
I know, it's been a long time.
I don't remember, I'm Kevin Decker, I was out here with
Yes.
John Dolphy.
Yep.
Dustin Draybeck from our office had, I don't know if
Oh,
he stopped in or
yes.
if he called. There were some questions about cyber liability.
Yeah.
Yes.
So that's why I'm here.
Oh, they got the new
Okay.
policy?
We actually, they approved the power plan, which is the current program you're in now, for property and liability. They did at the last, their quarterly meeting, which was the end of July. They approved the cyber program.
Okay.
I don't have any details as far as, information for you yet.
Just that it's closed, right?
Just that, yeah. When I talked to them, that was the end of July, they said we'll probably have something ready to go the 15th of August. I'm thinking more like 1st of September.
Okay.
But as far as, we have some details, the initial program that they're talking about would include cyber liability, which when we talk about cyber, we're talking typically about information that you have, someone hacking in and stealing that. But some of the other things are, a lot with our municipalities, we're finding is that people aren't trying to steal your information, because most of the information you have is public information. It's more they want to lock your systems so you can't operate, you can't function, you can't
Hold you hostage.
Correct.
they hold you hostage, exactly.
That's the issue you were talking about.
Yep, and that's what, these policies would provide coverage for to either A, pay those ransoms. It sounds crazy, but
it happens.
But it happens, and, the coverage is there to pay those ransoms. Or, if we decide we have backups, we can get you up and running that way. It pays the labor to get the people, to restore the systems, get you back up and running. And so those types of things. That's really for our municipalities, the big.
We talked to some of our providers after that, and a lot of them have our information backed up in their cloud. So I would assume once you get this coverage, we need to sit down and find out where it all matches or doesn't match.
Exactly, and that's sometimes, like I said, with this, if you have the IT, the contractors that handle that, they may have you pretty much wrapped up, and so there's a small gap we might have, and the policy can answer that.
Your coverage about taking care of the people that hold hostage, Shelley went to a class at the county, I think it was, right? Several municipalities in this area have been held hostage for a lot of money.
Right.
And they basically lock up all your records and you can't get anything done, and then who knows where it ends up. So even if none of us are proficient enough to know if there's some little hole in there, if there is, that's where that coverage would come in very handy.
Exactly. And the initial numbers they threw out at us was you can start off with $100,000 of coverage. The ballpark figure they're throwing out is around $600 for the year. So not a horrible cost. You can obviously buy more. They always offer that option. But even the $100,000 initially, to me, is a good starting point to again, cover some of those things that aren't covered by the IT contractors.
I would assume when you come back to us, you might have some statistics on what the typical, ransom request would be.
Yeah, we'll have more, and that's the thing, as far as marketing materials and things, they're just getting that together. But one of the other things they are offering with the policy, because a lot of times you buy insurance, it's only there when something happens. This program actually will include some training. So it'll include, you can let all the employees of the township go through training. They can, they'll send out sample phishing emails, things like that, to help, try and eliminate
what to look for.
Exactly. Getting into a predicament, if we can avoid it. So again, just really initial information that I have. As soon as we get it, I'll get you more. But I would say, within the next couple of weeks, I'll have more information, and we can get you some numbers together. But
I'm sure we're interested in some of that. Once we can figure out what it is we have to do. Thank you for letting us know.
Oh, you're welcome.
Okay. Are there any other questions or comments from anybody in the audience? Okay. Next, there's no resolutions. Let's go to Holly Area Youth Assistance. I'm sorry, that is a
So, yes, this is a resolution, and they're just asking that we approve Nancy Hanks being appointed to the Holly Area Youth Assistance Board. So, my motion.
Is there a second?
I will second that.
Any other questions or comments from the board? Any from the audience? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, it's done.
Patty, could I have her last name again?
Thanks. Didn't you say that?
Oh, I thought you wanted mine now, last name. Okay.
And you are who?
Haynes. H-A-N-E-S. I'm sorry about that. It did kind of like.
It's Monday.
I got
This
it.
is all because coffee wasn't ready this morning.
Yes.
Okay. Okay, moving on to miscellaneous reports, Holly Area Youth Assistance.
Well, other than the new hire,
Everyone got that?
I didn't go to the last meeting because we had the MTA meeting. But I did volunteer this past weekend to collect cash for kids, and we collected $656.
Very good.
That's awesome.
Okay. Brandon Groveland Youth?
I have that update. The No Worries book program with the library has started, and Fran has 32 prizes for giveaways and is looking for 8 more. The 50/50 raffle will be held on September 28th between 3 and 4 at the September Fest. And Challenge Day will be moved to Thursday, November 21st, and it will be 1 day only.
Okay, thank you. Planning Commission, Dale, anything?
Okay, our planning commission meeting was held on July 23rd. We had quite the agenda. We had John Noyce from Oakland County Parks come over, and he did a real nice presentation on the concept of the ORV park. It was really informative and kind of interesting. We discussed the food truck ordinance, and that's still under consideration. We also discussed the draft for the Airbnb, and we're still working on that. That's under consideration. We approved the special use permit for Rotten Manor. That's coming up here for the Halloween season, and also for the Renaissance Festival. We approved that permit as well. Oh, and on the shipping container, that's still under discussion as well.
Yeah, I think they're writing up the ordinance for that, but it looks like it's going okay.
Yep. That's all we have.
I don't, Jim would be here for BZA, but I don't think they had it.
No, there's one tomorrow, actually.
That's it tomorrow? Okay, next week is tomorrow. For me, what I'll report on a couple of things. We had, looking at how we want to get the township's property developed at exit 101 and the Grange Hall Road, we had some preliminary discussions with Genesee about running their sewer line down to that property because it would make it easier to get the commercial development part of that property going. And then it kind of looked like it wasn't going to be an item for discussion, but George Cullis, the supervisor in Holly that I've been working with, told me today that he met with Shannon Industries, who's going to be tied into their drain system, in the project they're doing, because there's going to be about 4 or 5 times that many buildings on that property. That they're doing a project that started out, I think, at $1 million and is now up to $3 million. But he's willing, if it works out, to postpone their connection if it will help fund bringing the sewer line down to our property. But we don't think there's too much application right now for bringing it down farther into Springfield, because Colin says he's got some options coming up from the south side, and a lot of that area in between is the state land, so we're not going to run 5 or 6 miles of sewer line with nobody to connect to, basically. But it might help us get it to our property, and we have to be able to decide somewhere in the next couple of years, are we going to end up having to put a treatment facility in there or a sewer line? The sewer line would be, I think, better if we can afford to do it. So to that end, George called me this afternoon and said, okay, I'll set up a meeting with the drain commissioner, and he and I will meet with them and see what they think it would take to get it from Shannon down there. And so I have no idea where this is going to go, but we're trying to make sure we're crossing all the T's and dotting all the I's on it before making decisions. So that's going to be coming up here. And just a reminder, the car show is October the 5th at Mount Holly's parking lot. I should have the flyers pretty soon, and I'll start dropping them at some of the car shows and put them on the counter and some of the other places. We are renting the stage from Oakland County's Parks Department for it. Holly has got a DJ and some music lined up for it. And I know he's got at least one food vendor lined up so far. And he got his first donation from Shannon Industries to be the sponsor of it today. So if we're lucky, that will cover all the flyers, decals, dash plaques, trophies, that kind of stuff. So we're running out of time here. I keep on reminding you of that, but it is moving along. So the show will be for sure, and we'll let you know. put it out on the sign again once we get some of the flyers done. Dave?
Is there an application or?
Yes, and it'll be on the flyer. Actually, what we're doing this through, thank you for asking that, we're doing this through the Holly Chamber of Commerce. And the Holly Chamber of Commerce is setting up an actual, button on their website that's going to have the application, and the first 100 people that sign up through that application and show up to the show will be the ones that will get the first 100 dash plaques for their cars. So all that will be on there, and it'll be on the flyers as soon as I get it. And I talked to the individual that's finishing up the flyer for us today. And in case you don't know, there are a few more test events scheduled between now and when the ORV park actually opens in July of 2020. A couple of those are to test some, what I would call relatively minor modifications to the courses that are out there. You might not know when you drive by, it probably still looks like a big mining hole, but if you look at the DVD that we're running on the cable channel where they did some footage with the drones, you can clearly see where the tracks are and all that. And I've got a color layout of it that shows, well, this is a motorcycle track, this one's a side-by-side, and all that kind of information. So it's really pretty far along. They're going to tweak a couple of them because they're always looking for the noise abatement issue, and it's really gone very well. I've had no complaints in the township. Somebody in the organization said they got one complaint. And so they're tweaking that part of the course to make it so that it doesn't create that same issue again. It was one loop up the side of Mount Holly. And
That was with the motorcycles, wasn't it?
yeah, that one, and they had 240 motorcycles on it. Nobody said anything. So the other thing that came up recently is they've been talking to a group, I don't know if you know, it's called Mudders, which are the guys that have the kicked up trucks. And I said, I got a little bit concerned with that because all the motorcycles and Jeeps and everything else we had all had spark arresters and mufflers on them, chambered mufflers. I said, Mudders usually run what they call zoomies, pipes straight up through the hood, or open headers. I said, that's a lot louder, especially if you're pushing 700 to 1,000 horsepower. They told me they had a test back on the Leone part of the property, and you couldn't hear it. And I said, well, I would like to be there when we test it again, okay?
Exactly.
And they said, and Josh said right away, we will invite the entire planning commission and the whole township board. I said, yes, you will. So when they test it again, we'll be there. But I have to say, I don't know if it's going to be zero noise, but I would have to hear it because that area where they tested it, that they wanted to put the log pit in it, is probably as far away from everybody behind the mountain, closer to I-75 where it drops down 70 to 100 feet. And it might actually stay in there, but I will say this, John Noyes and the folks at the county have been doing a really, I think, a landmark job on trying to test this along the way. There's a couple of other events coming up in September, so you might see a sign that temporarily goes up there for a day or two to come down, where they're testing different kinds of events. There's a big off-road event being done down at Cobo Hall that they're building a course down there by the foot of the river, temporarily. And part of that event is after they get that done, they're taking them to some other places, and one of them is to bring them out here to get some coverage for this. We did have a media day a couple of weeks ago, and the township board was all there with the county, and Chief Mason was there, and a whole bunch of other people I never saw before. But they were from, and Dave was with us, they were from different publications or TV channels. They're trying to make sure that the coverage on this park we're building gets properly noticed in the industry, because it's going to draw from more than just Oakland County. So things are moving along pretty good on that, I'd say, so far. And don't go on the property, because you're not supposed to do it unless there's two people in the DNR you have to ask first, or they do have a couple of guys that are writing some really expensive tickets, okay? Because they're trying to keep the kids off so they don't get hurt on it. So. But I can tell you that they dropped a bunch of crushed asphalt down on the parking area that's up by Dixie, and it looks like a parking lot now. And they dropped a bunch of it down on that main road that goes down to that central pit area where it really kind of converses in the middle of the place. So it's starting to look more and more like an ORV park. They'll make some changes, but it's pretty close, I would say, to the way it's going to be when it's finished. They have to come back to the planning commission, and I told them that's in our Dixie Byway district. I don't want it to look like a big hole in the ground when you drive by. I realize that's what it is, but I want some kind of split rail fence or something that's in our overlay district so it looks better. And they said, yes, we'll do that. And I said, yes, you will when you submit the site plan, because that's what we're going to ask for. think we're getting there. I think by next year it's gonna actually open. They are still trying to negotiate a deal with Mount Holly to use their parking lot in the summer. But I'll be honest with you, I don't think they need it. Whether they get it or not, I don't know. Some people say they will, and other people have told me, yeah, that ain't gonna happen. So I don't know for sure, but we'll just have to wait and see. And the access to the facility right now is the same one that the mining operation used, which is Shields Road. Well, I mean, nobody knows where Shields Road is because it's only 0.12 miles long. It's about 1,000 feet or so. And it's right next to the Consumers Building. Once it gets to the gate back there at Barry Bass's property that we sold them, it was what they call an uncertified road, which meant it just meandered all over the gravel pit from the 50s, depending on wherever they were taking dirt. What we're doing on the Planning Commission, I talked to our planner, Ben Rico, who's working on this for the next planning agenda. So if he didn't call you yet on it, Gary, he will. Okay. But we're going to write an ordinance. The state of Michigan wrote a law several years ago that said all of the counties in the northern part of the state could allow off-road vehicles to be driven on their public roads. And up like where my cottage is, that's pretty common. People drive snowmobiles in the winter because they can't get to the supermarket otherwise. And but it was only the northern half. Then after about 3 years, they actually modified it so the southern half could do it. Now, there's not a whole lot down here to do it. I know Lapeer allows it, but it only allows it, I think, on 2 principal roads that they use it on. And so what we're going to do is present language to use that law to allow off-road vehicles on a public road as long as the only road that they're allowed on is Shields Road, which is 1/10 of a mile. And the reason for that is to get from the township's 88 or 90 acres that's over off of Grange Hall Road. I don't want anybody that might lease space in our development for their off-road vehicle to have to load it up, put it on a trailer, drive out onto Grange Hall Road, drive around on Dixie, and just add a whole bunch of slow-moving traffic. I want them to be able to come up off of our property, and Barry's agreed to let them, if they have to cut his, and get into that same access point. So that's why we need the rule for that one road only. It will, I think, simplify and expedite the traffic flow so that we have another point to run it through. So that's in the works. The big question is right now, nobody's quite sure, including the road commission, who owns Warden Road when they abandoned it, because Warden Road came from Grange Hall Road, where it is on the other side, all the way through the gravel pits behind the Consumer Power Building and into Shields Road. And years ago, and I'm talking a long time ago, like 30, 35 years ago, when I was on the Planning Commission, I remember getting the request, we're going to abandon Warden Road because at that time it was Tri-City Aggregates, was going to mine right through it. And so it disappeared on our 88 acres. They mined it out. But the little stub piece of it that happens to run behind Consumers and in front of Tri-City is there, but nobody takes care of it because as far as the road commission's concerned, that road does not exist. The question is, who owns what was under the road? And it looks like it was a half section line. And the attorney for the road commission said, well, sometimes that just defaults to the township. It goes to you guys. I said, well, great, if it is, tell me, because then we'll figure out how to get to the little Shields Road. But I don't know, it could also default to the people that were adjacent to it. So I said, all right, then let me know, because I'm pretty sure that Consumers has no idea if they own that road, because there's no driveways out on it. It's full of ruts and holes. I'll be willing to bet you $1,000 they don't even know if they own it. But if they do, we're going to see if we can somehow acquire it, because that's the easiest road, and that's the path that was used when we had those test events called the Gully Run. It just made it so much nicer for people to pull off of Dixie onto that short Shields Road, go down the old Warden Road. Barry Bass rebuilt the road back down into where the Gully Run was. It would simplify traffic flow substantially. So that's all in the works. It just, like everything with government, it takes a long time to get through the issues. But I've met with the right people and we're waiting for some answers. Okay. So that's pretty much what I have for the supervisor's report. Is there anything you want?
Yeah, I did a salary study, comparison of salaries to other townships in our area, and
For staff support.
for staff support here in the office. And I'd like to suggest we set up a special meeting to discuss the findings and the outcomes, if the board's open to that.
We do it like on a Wednesday.
Yeah, Wednesday would be
Okay,
good.
everybody?
This week, I'm going on vacation after I leave here today.
Oh, that's.
All vacations have been canceled tomorrow.
Well, we can still do it providing Jim.
Yeah, if we can get 4, can we do it, and then we'll talk to you tomorrow?
Yeah, are you
about what
okay
we're
with
thinking
that?
and
Yeah.
See if you're, so we got your input for it?
Yeah.
Yes. Okay, we have a meeting with Ecto at 1:30.
Yes. Originally, it was last
Yes,
week at 9:30.
yes,
It's
but I wanted to
1:30 this
remind you.
right.
So, Jim, what?
Are we talking this-
This,
this
yeah,
Wednesday?
the day after tomorrow, still Wednesday.
I don't know.
The afternoon sometime?
Yeah.
5 o'clock or something?
And we're here till, wait,
We're-
5?
And just do Wednesday
All right.
at 5?
Will that meeting be open to the public?
Yes, absolutely.
What time is it?
5,
Wednesday?
yes.
Okay.
Do we need to take a vote on that? I should know, but, no, I think
No,
we'll
we
just
can
set it
schedule a
up.
meeting.
Yeah.
Okay.
We'll
You gotta
post
notice
it.
it tomorrow, yeah.
Yes, we'll post it and it'll be there. We'll put it on the website under agendas also.
Shelley, did you want to, anything else?
Yeah.
I think we covered it all, right?
Everything's going good in the treasurer's office.
If there's nothing else on this agenda, we'll adjourn and reconvene for the fire board. So, Chief, we're all here. Thank you.
We're yours.
For the month of July, we had 100 calls
It's the biggest month yet, I think.
in Ohio. So 60 of those were medicals. It looks like we had 52 transports out of those 60. We had 4 car accidents, which is ironic because we had 4 today. We had 13 power lines or trees down, and we had 1 fire, which ended up being nothing. Last year, this time, we had 87 calls. The year before that was 127. The year before that was 94. So even though we took the village out of the mix, we're still pretty much in that ballpark for July. So our total for the end of July was 546. Currently, we're at 37 calls for this month. So it's tracking for about another 100 for this month. As you know, we've lost 3 paramedics that weren't filling shifts last month. They were, filling people that were active at one time, but they hadn't been pulling any shifts, so they eventually just resigned. But I would like to recommend that we hire 2 new firefighters. One is Hannah Monk. She's works in Dryden on their fire department there. She's a brand new firefighter. Brand new paramedic. And as you know, we typically hire a lot of people like that, brand new, get some experience, and they move on to other places. And we even talked about that because we talked about independence. 1/3 of the people that work there used to work here. So that's one, and then the other one is Rebecca Benedict from Springfield. She's a firefighter paramedic, IC. Been on a couple calls with her recently, and she quit NACFA. And honestly, we need some help for a Renaissance Festival as far as paramedics. So, and if she can teach once in a while, that'd be great. So I'd like to recommend that we hire Hannah Monk and Rebecca Benedict.
Okay. Need a motion to that order?
I'll motion we hire
Hannah Monk.
Anna Monk and
Rebecca
Rebecca Benedict, providing they fill out their paperwork here and as little employees.
I will second that.
Okay, any other questions or comments from the board? Any from the audience? Carrie, you want to take a roll call?
Bob DiPalma,
Yes.
Patty Back,
Yes.
Shelley Kidd,
Yes.
Dale Cason.
Yes.
Thank you. Last month we did hose testing that ended up being almost $4,000, and that's something we budget for. But we were not
We
impressed.
got hosed.
Yeah, we weren't impressed with the job they did, and the second day they did it, they came out and said that, the last 750 feet of the hose on your last truck failed. and they wrote failed on it, but when we checked, it's just the latches were mysteriously bent. And then the same exact thing happened in the village of Holly, so we're not gonna use them anymore. So, we're gonna look at, we're researching now how much it would be for us to purchase a pressure pump so we can do the testing ourselves. So we could save about $4,000 a year. The pump, what we're looking at is between $3,000 and $4,000. So,
It pays for itself in 1 year.
yeah,
Would
and
you-
then we also
And
talked
you're
about,
in the connection, right?
yeah, and we fixed all those connectors, by the way, so we didn't lose that. So-
Would you share that with Holly or just?
Actually, I talked to Chief McGee and Chief Feichner at the funeral on Saturday, and we were actually talking about putting that up for the chiefs.
Body
Move
together.
the body. But then I talked to Billy Starr, they have one over in Brandon that they haven't used in 10 years, so maybe we can buy theirs.
They still pay to have it done, and they have their own test machine.
So, and their price went up $800 this year, and they said also we keep the same good people, and not a single person was the same.
I hate it when you cobble it up with facts.
Brush one, we did the autopsy on the engine. We spun the bearings on piston 6 and 7, and it looked like 5 were starting to go. So we didn't find any weird things in there, or like nuts or bolts or anything. So we think it was just because it didn't have an overdrive transmission.
It was working too hard.
They were going to a call, probably, getting it, and it just didn't take it. So we did buy a engine, transmission, and transfer case. And Tommy's currently, he autopsied the motor today or Sunday, and he's starting on taking that other motor and getting ready to put it in the brush one. Wednesday, we're planning on marking the area off for the training center. I'll borrow that drawing that you have, and we'll go off of that. And tomorrow, Mission Point, which is the old Holly, over in the village, is having an evacuation exercise. So since we would be involved, we're asked to show up Sunday, send a truck and crew over there. It's about 1:30.
Okay.
But that's about all I have.
Okay, thank you.
Any questions?
Where are you setting up that training center? Is that on the Mavis property or is that?
Yeah.
Yes.
Barry
Back in the
asked us to
woods.
move it in a different place that would allow for more development on the property. It's
Exercise again.
roughly the same area, it's just kind of to one side. And so they're going to go stake it off based on Barry's drawing of where he'd like it to be, and then Barry has agreed, I think, to take the dozer and pull the trees out of there. Yeah, and I have him checking because I don't think any of them trees are anything special. I think we ought to be able to really bushwhack the section.
Well, that's what we're planning. So
Yes.
I hope they don't find the spotted owl.
No, it's not that, it's, some people think that's that water, there's a puddle of
Yeah.
ponded water there, but it's just a clay bucket, it's,
And as far as I know, that's an extraction site. So.
yes, so we should be able to, but there's an attorney checking that for us with Barry. Okay, thanks. If there's nothing else, any other questions? Now, a motion to adjourn would be in order.
Motion we adjourn?
A second,
Second that.
all in favor? Aye. Thank you, everybody.
Okay.